Welcome to the Short Funk Podcast. I'm Tom Barbalet, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about how I got into, sleep experimentation, lucid dreaming, whatever you want to call it. When I was a young child, I was plagued by nightmares, and I was plagued by what I would call episodic nightmares, with the view that either they were exactly the same nightmare that would occur again and again and again, or there would be a continuation where I would find myself in the same environment and the same kind of nightmare circumstances would happen. And these dreams affected me very greatly. I'm talking about probably when I was about 4 or 5. The motivating factor, at least one of the things that I focused on, was when I was a small child, when I was about 4, I went to the UK with my father and mother. We flew, it was a 24-hour flight. We stopped in Bahrain. But it was on the plane watching a movie which was clearly designed for adults that had a slow death shooting scene, and also had a scene associated with a guy getting shot up and just bleeding profusely from his stomach and obviously dying. And these little vignettes of images, also obviously being stuck on a plane through that period, create a different mentality. The whole experience of going to the UK and also spending probably a month, maybe 6 weeks going around Italy and France with my mother while my father was in the UK, changed a variety of my perspectives. The ability to see vast quantities of Renaissance art, and just that whole period of time was so sensorily overwhelming for me in terms of just the breadth of culture that I absorbed in a relatively small period of time. And then returning to Australia after 3 months of this, I don't know. It kind of changed my perspective inalterably and probably removed me distinctly from the other kids that, were around me at the time. Anyway, from this set of experiences, in particular, watching these people die on film slowly, the bad guy, I think, at the end of the movie, I've never worked out what movies they were. I kind of thought it might have been a James Bond movie. I've been back through the films that were made in 1979 and, what kind of stuff was available. It's amazing, actually, that they showed films on flights then. I wonder if they had, film projection. I have a very curious remembrance of the kind of late 70s and early 80s. But in any case, these images stuck with me and became part of my kind of dream space very early on. There was a recurring dream that I had, which was in some kind of abstract Western environment, like Arizona or New Mexico, where I was being chased and shot up by bandits, faceless bandits. And this dream was reoccurring through when I was 5 and 6, to the point where it was almost familiar. It's the bandits are here to kill me again, And I realized through this period of time that I needed to address very strongly the environments that existed in my sleep state, particularly because they were reoccurring. It felt to me at the time that I was going back to the same places, and that I needed to have strategies in place in order to deal with when these bandits showed up, but also what I was going to do. And through my early teens, I began realizing that I could do things, unimaginable things in my dream space that I could never do in real life. Things like flying, things like moving around a room like you're a spider, basically walking on the ceiling, these kind of things. And by the time I got to my late teens, I started doing experiments associated with moving through the real world in a lucid dream state. These experiments were certainly well beyond the stuff that I read about, because over probably from 17 through to about 19, I read a number of books on lucid dreaming, and I was already past that in terms of the dream experiments that I was conducting. I already had, very good dream identification. I had very good, movement between... one of the things that I actually quite enjoy doing in my dreams is having multi-setting dreams where I actually control walking through a doorway, completely changing where I am and the environment that I am. And the metaphor of the doorway as being a means of, getting to various areas means that I don't need to dream about flying or traveling by train, although these things occur in my dreams as well. One of the most interesting dream experiments that I did was associated with real-world physical objects. This has since been covered relatively heavily by Hollywood. And I think actually a lot of the Hollywood basis is probably on the dream books that I was reading around the time that I was doing these experiments. But the objects that I would carry would typically be objects that were completely removed from my general day-to-day environment. For a long period of time, I had a pen, which I would kind of summon in my dream space. And on maybe half a dozen occasions, I would wake up with a pen in my hand, which was very curious to me because I could never remember how I actually got the pen. The strangest of these experiences, however, was associated with a cigarette lighter. Now, I don't smoke. I think at the time, in the shed environment that I lived in, I don't know. I mean, it was electric. Everything was electric there. So the whole nature of how a cigarette lighter would kind of appear in my environment is relatively curious. But I went to sleep one evening and had an extremely vivid dream involving going into a bakery and buying various bakery items and these kind of things, and finding, as I was walking out of the bakery, a lighter on the ground. And I woke up in the morning with the lighter in my hand. And it was one of the strangest experiences that I had. I realized I'd moved into an area associated with lucid dreaming, which was beyond some barrier. It was something actually which caused me to stop and pause and take note. And since then, I've done a variety of periodically similar lucid dreaming experiments with physical objects. And most of the time, this is objects that I will actually fall asleep with the object in my hand. And maybe some of this was influenced by seeing the film Inception, but as I noted, I think Inception was actually based on a lot of the lucid dream work. But I've used this kind of place an object in a dream as a means of understanding certain aspects. I think I talked about on Stone Ape leaving 2 toothbrushes in one of my dream states to identify immediately that I'm in that dream state. This is obviously my environment where I have an electric toothbrush. Increasingly, I find these lucid dream spaces are both familiar, but they also give me an ability to explore things in my writing, in my creative space, which are really very fruitful. I'm going to talk about this in future Short Funk recordings as well, giving more specifics, but I wanted to give a general overview associated with my experimentation here. Tom Barbalet in San Jose, signing out.